Welcome to Current Conversations, a podcast imagined by Rivers Are Life and BeAlive, where we discuss freshwater systems, the important role that rivers and watersheds play in our world, and how educating conservationists leads to a healthier planet. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode, Storytelling on Screen, and being part of a ripple of action that is creating change. I'm Ariel Roth, co-host of Current Conversations and Rivers Are Life community manager.
And I'm Julia Rajeski, impact manager at Rivers Are Life and Current Conversations co-host. Today's guest is Kate Richter Green. Kate Richter Green is an accomplished entertainment executive with a deep track record of developing, creating, and producing quality and award-winning content. With nearly 20 years in the non-scripted arena, she is experienced in working with both Fortune 500 companies and major digital and linear entertainment outlets.
Julia and I know her better as our Vice President of Current Programming here at BeAlive Studios, oversees the development and production of BeAlive Studios' unscripted slate across all platforms and all of our short films produced at Rivers Are Life. And we cannot wait for you to get to know her today.
How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic today. Sun is shining in Bozeman. Could not be happier.
Good. Glad to hear it. We're so excited to have you on.
So we know you as our Vice President of Current Programming. But for listeners who maybe aren't familiar with that side of Rivers Are Life and BeAlive, can you give just a Cliff Notes intro on yourself?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be a guest. I am a longtime listener of podcasts, so this is exciting. First time being on one. I appreciate it. I would say the Cliff Notes, I am a 20-year television and programming veteran. I started my career in traditional television series and worked my way through all sorts of different programming, all in the non-scripted and documentary arena. And then most recently, since I've been at BeAlive, I oversee all the content here. So everything from our Rivers Are Life films to content we do for other platforms. This is like a dream job for me because I used to be on the other end where someone would think something up and I would have to go execute it as a creative producer. But now I get to dream the things up, which is amazing. And other than that, I am a Montana native, happy to be back here. I spent some time in California, spent some time in Michigan, and I have 2 kids. I'm a hockey mom, I have a dog, and I am just loving living life in Bozeman, Montana now.
So you mentioned, all the various paths you took to get here. What drew you to this kind of work in storytelling? I mean, originally like non-scripted TV, that kind of thing. What drew you to that originally?
If I'm being totally honest, I fell into it. So I got an English degree here at Montana State University. And my thesis professor said, and he was brutally honest, and it was great advice. He said, you either need to go to graduate school or leave Montana to get a job. And so I followed my sister down to Los Angeles and started my career working in public relations. And I found out very quickly I did not enjoy public relations. It was super fun. I had some cool experiences, but it wasn't for me. And, I was like 22 at the time and I wanted to travel. And I had the opportunity. The freelance television industry, particularly on the non-scripted side, is very who you know. And you'll get a call for something, interview, and you could have a job on Monday. And so I had an interview for a series that was filming down in New Zealand. And I got the job and was on a plane about 2 weeks later. And that was it. From there, I was like, I can be in a creative capacity. I can travel the world. I can get paid for it. I don't know what could humanly be better than this. And so that was kind of the way my career went for, I don't know, almost 20 years, just, doing different jobs for different networks, for different streamers, for different brand clients, and which brought me to BeAlive.
Nice. And I think when we look at the non-scripted realm of television and film, there's so much importance and authenticity behind that type of storytelling, which we do focus on quite a bit at BeAlive and Rivers Are Life. If anyone's seen our films, I think that that's fairly obvious. But how exactly do you guys focus on that authenticity? If someone hasn't seen our films before, this is the first one they're tuning into, and this is driving them to watch it, how can they expect to see that in our work?
Good question. Yeah, we spend a lot of time developing our films. We work with a research team, and then as a group, as a studio collective, we look at all our stories, and there are so many great stories to be told. And we really think about what stories we want to tell. Are they authentic? Who do they speak to? And do they tell a different story than one we've told? And some of them are not insanely different, but we really do try to tell diverse stories. But the way we tell them through authenticity is honestly just working with our river heroes. We do outreach to them. We do in-depth research on their organizations. Most of these river heroes and most of the causes are just completely authentic, and they want their stories to be told. So it's, truth be told, it's kind of an easy job in that capacity to tell an authentic story. The tricky part is figuring out which ones we want to tell, why one surfaces or one feels like a better story to tell at the time than another. And then when our film teams go out, we work really, really closely all through development, pre-production, and even production to make sure we're telling the stories correctly. We would never want to have anyone say anything that wasn't authentic to them. We are never going to trick anyone into anything. We honestly want these films to be, you know, a tool that they can use to help get funding, to help get awareness. Like, we want them to be proud of them. And in that way, they just kind of naturally and organically are very authentic.
I would like you to know that we recently interviewed Chad from Study Abroad, and he said it was one of the only times a film about him has made him cry watching it.
Oh, that is so nice to hear, especially from someone like Chad, who is such an amazing person and big personality, and everybody wants to tell his story. I love to hear that. And that's what you want to hear. You want people to say, like, I was so proud, I cried, you told my story perfectly. And we work really, really hard to do that. You know, we on the back end, when we're going through post-production, we fact check everything. We have to have 2 or 3 sources for everything to make sure we're telling the story accurately. We are not embellishing anything. But again, we're really fortunate. Like, these stories come through, and like with the example of Chad, we knew Chad would be amazing. We did not quite know that Coach and Callie and that whole team would be so incredible. So that is one of, well, they're all my favorites, but that was a story that was just like such a pleasure start to finish. And I giggle every time I watch it, watch like the tour of the barge. But that is really lovely to hear. That's what we want to hear. You know, if I'd rather hear that from Chad and say it was a pleasure and it made him cry and he's proud of it than anything else in the world. If we did our jobs right, we will hear that every time.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I know I speak for everybody, like the care that you put in behind the scenes to present these river heroes and the people we work with, to present them authentically. I think it really shines. I mean, clearly it shines through in the film. And I want to shift a little bit here. We talk about the care and the diligence it takes to present this story. Could you tell me a little bit about the process it takes to actually film and produce these? We know, I mean, you must know, the film industry has changed so much over just the past couple of years, 20 years. What changes have you seen in terms of sustainability in the film industry? Where is that all heading now?
Oh, that's a good question. I was actually thinking about this because the first show I ever worked on was a global adventure race called the Eco Challenge. And it was about 20 some years ago. And the eco in it means that it had an environmental or eco give back component. And that was like 20 years ago. And it was really ahead of its time. Lisa Hennessy, who was our executive producer, she just had a mandate from the top down that we were going to do a give back, whether it be, you know, I did a season or one of the seasons we went to Fiji, and everybody on the crew had to bring 5 books to start a new library for a Fijian village. And then we also, boots on the ground, we didn't use any, at the time it was very ahead of its time, but we tried not to use single-use plastic. And that was revolutionary at the time. No one was doing that. And then cut to a few years later, I had a similar experience on a show I did where we were not allowed to use single-use plastic or any packaging on set. And it's really a top-down thing. You have to have buy-in from the top or it's not going to work, because you can be, you know, the one person on set that's using a refillable water bottle. But if you're executive producer or your network executive doesn't have that mandate, it's not going to work. And then cut to a couple years ago, I went back to Fiji for the same series I'd done there years ago. And we had a crew. I think this was, again, for a worldwide adventure race. So competitors, crew, all in, I think we had 1,000 people across the island of Fiji, spread out, across it. And again, the same executive producer I was working with, Lisa Hennessy, she did put a mandate in place, no single-use plastic. And so we did a collaboration with Life Straw Village, and there were Life Straw Villages. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like huge, like rain barrels, basically, that filter water out, and you put them in a cup or a water bottle. And so as our crew, our beginning of shoot crew gift, we got a refillable water bottle, and we had these filling stations everywhere. Again, it was top down. And so, very long-winded way to say, the progression has been, back in the day, it was one person who was an outlier, like trying to make the change, cut to, and we tried as best we could, cut to this last series I did, which was for Amazon. You got in trouble. Like, you would be fined if you were seen using a single-use plastic bottle. And so I think, like, the optics have changed, where it used to be like a fingers crossed, let's hope we can do this. I think the industry is changing into a like, no, we need to do this, because film sets and Hollywood, everything is so wasteful. It's so wasteful. And if you can just get buy-in from the top down, it's all possible. I mean, we had 1,000 people across an island that were able to do it. So if you can't do it there, you can't do it anywhere. And we did. So back to your original question, the progress you've seen made is like, again, it used to be just like, let's try to do this. And now it's, no, let's make an impact. Let's have somebody chart this. Let's make this part of our socials. Let's make this part of what we throw to the world and they see. And let's be a beacon for change, which is great.
That's great. And I think we all do like try and shift that way. I definitely have at home. Aside from plastic straws, like reusable straws, they're gross to me. Like,
even the metal ones?
They're so hard to keep clean.
They're tough, but
like,
yeah.
It's like the one part of sustainability that I struggle with, but I have shifted to everything else being like fully reusable at home.
Hard. Yeah. I always come back to that.
That's me with go ahead, Julia.
No,
I was just going to say, the one thing I can't get around is the reusable saran wrap. I just don't use it, but it weirds me out.
That's fair.
It like sticks.
But I think people also get overwhelmed about that. Like, they think when they have to make a change for sustainability, they have to do everything. Right. Whereas it can just be changing your water bottle to it, or, making one small change, or switching to like the dryer sheets, the laundry detergent sheets, that it makes an impact for each and every one of us to just shift one behavior. So in the terms of just one impact or just one moment or things like that, what are some of your one impact or one moments that stick out from recording, whether it be a film moment or just something that you just remember? Like your most memorable moments from filming, production,
in Rivers or Life?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's so many, and it depends on like how you measure impact, because I would say every single film has had an impact on me in some way. Some are greater than others. Some are like
but
small
just
changes,
memorable
some are
moments,
big changes.
Like even just a funny moment or one that like you think of all the time, just makes your heart smile. Like just.
I think I have to come back to it. I'm like completely drawing a blank. Give me another example if anybody had one.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really the first thing that's coming to mind for me is a shot from the conservation kid. I don't know why, but this shot of Cash, the conservation kid who we did that film about, in his little hat with his little backpack and the monofilament bin sticking out of his backpack, and he is just walking. And it's just that one shot, for whatever reason, that just screams, I'm just going to work. He's just a kid, and this is just what he does. Yep. It was no big deal for him. It just looks so unassuming. He didn't want a lot of pomp and circumstance, but it was so inspiring to see him doing this almost thankless job, and just this image of this kid just walking to go put his monofilament bin in place. Yeah. I love that shot. And I know you know what I'm talking about, because we use it on like the poster. Yeah. Mountains and the river and his sweet little hat. And I spent some time with him recently, and he's just a phenomenal person. But that moment to me was like, oh my gosh, if he can go out and do this on his own and bundle up and have a monofilament bin falling out of his back, if he can do that, like, we could do anything. You know, I can switch to a straw. Like, I can switch to a reusable straw. Like, I can do all that. So that to me, I don't know, that was a big one from our films that it just really got to me.
I really, from the upcoming film, as we're filming this right now, it will have been released once this goes live, this podcast. But from Life Afloat, I really love the quote about if you look in the mirror and smile, the mirror smiles back at you. But if you look in the mirror and frown, the mirror frowns back at you. And how he truly believes in karma. And if you do good things for people, good will come back to you. Like, that is a quote that since watching that film has really stuck with me. And I have like thought of multiple times, and just how we look at life overall, or the doing good. If you just do that one small thing, it will continue to do good, or good will come back to you. But just shifting our mindset as well, even if you're having a really bad day, if you just look in the mirror and smile, the mirror smiles back at you. And we have that constant control over what choices we make or how our life affects us. And that has been one that like has really stuck with me since watching that.
Well, thank you for the examples. Those are both perfect. When you said like a silly moment, the one that gets me every time, and I just watched the film the other day. And by the way, by the time they're released, I've probably watched every film, 15, 20 times. We watch them so much. But there's a part in Watershed Warriors. First of all, Gary and his looks and his just like our editor, the film team and the editor completely captured like how silly he is, but he's also doing such great work. And there's a line, I think it's Katie Horning's favorite line too, where he says, it's about the TV repairman and the dentist, and I'm going to completely botch it. But he says something silly to his group of kids, and then he just waits, like gives it a beat and a smile, because he just thinks he's so funny. And every single time it makes me like spit take, because he just like, he knows this is his shtick, and his shtick is being this like silly environmentalist who's also doing a really, really amazing job and doing important work. But like his little looks, and in Watershed Warriors also, I just love the dog going through the frames, because it just speaks to like the dog's on the table and then all around. And I know those are not like incredibly impactful, not nearly as your example, Ariel, but I just love the kind of silliness.
In terms of the dog, he also did tell us on his interview, this is probably fun stuff for you to hear, but multiple people voted for Watershed Warriors in that one film festival because there was a dog in it.
Like, that's the reason.
I love it.
So
I love it. Can I tell you a behind the scenes of that? This is like inside scoop. So when we were in the edit, we loved the dog so much. And there was one part where like the dog like jumped on the table, and clearly that was authentic. But there was another interview where the editor had the dog run through frame, and he like, we loved it so much, he made ways for the dog to show up even when the dog wasn't there. So he did like kind of a mat and had it like run through half a frame while Gary was talking, because it just goes to show you, like, it also speaks to Gary. He's so casual and wonderful, and like there's this random dog running around and he's just having his interview. Like, some people would stop down, he doesn't care. He's there to tell his story.
I have a question about kind of along those lines. After speaking with Gary so recently, and Chad and everybody was spoken to, it's so incredible to see people doing almost what they were meant to do. Like, there's just no question in my mind that they are doing such wonderful work, and they're so thrilled to be doing that specific job. You are so good at your job in this specific field and in this genre of storytelling. And I know you mentioned, those moments of impact resonating with you earlier on in your career. What made you want to veer towards this storytelling area where it's not just storytelling? I don't know, it's storytelling with such a purpose. And I mean, our films go so far, not just for laying a narrative out there, but giving back to the people that we focus on in these stories. What made you want to shift your career more towards that?
When I look back on my career, I've been really fortunate. I've never had to take jobs that I didn't believe in, and that is, not everyone can say that. And I know I've been very fortunate. I started at a company that was just doing great programming, and I was able to go through different series with them. And I did. I did some documentary. I did sporting events. I did do some reality shows, and I started going more toward documentary because I just like pure stories. And it was probably about 11 years ago I made the shift to pure documentary, and I just love talking to people and getting to know them. And after I'd done a documentary series for about 4 seasons, I shifted to shorter content because I also found that not only was it the way that the industry is going, you know, my career has changed a lot in what I used to do to what I do now in terms of the content, but also the industry has changed a lot as a whole. It used to be that if there was a short piece of content on the web, on like a website or YouTube, it was like, what is that? Like everything's on network TV. Now it's like content's content and content's anywhere. And also I started shifting toward this because the ability to tell incredibly authentic stories with absolutely no ulterior motives is wonderful. And again, I was very fortunate in my career not to have to do that often, but like the landscape now is people just want to hear stories. Like if you look at Patagonia films, they never mention Patagonia. Somebody might wear a Patagonia jacket in a film, but they're talking about climate crisis or water issues, or maybe they're just telling a story. And so when I started seeing this shift of storytelling really going into purely authentic, where you don't have to show like, a close up of a Honda emblem or whatever it is. Like back in the day, it used to be brand integration was the way that brands did their storytelling. And you would have to do like, 2 shots and then 3 mentions in a series if you were doing a brand integration. Now, with integrated storytelling, you don't have to do any of it. And so I love that. I love that you can just purely tell a story and you don't have to worry about the back end and if you made the mention or got the shot or it's just purely about the story. And so that's what I love. And I've found also with these kind of 10 to 12 minute films, which is like our sweet spot for Rivers or Life, it's just the perfect amount of content, at least for me right now. Like I can't watch like a series lately. I just don't, it doesn't hold me. I like snippets of information and I like varied stories. So again, Rivers or Life is like a dream job for me because I can tell varied stories. They just give a snippet into someone's life. And we're doing it in a super authentic way.
So as we talk about those shifts and how it's gone more to that storytelling platform, which I fully agree with as someone who works in the digital marketing realm, it's shifted that way for everything. That is how you get consumers and viewers and everyone to watch your content. And I love it because it's authentic even in a marketing sense. Like it's made it more fun. Like we are marketing true items. But what can viewers, listeners expect moving forward as that content type shifts and all these trends shift? What can they expect from us?
Well, for Rivers or Life specifically, we are trying to reinvent the way we're telling our stories. We are doing a series that's kind of a repackaging of our first 12 films in different ways. And the aim of that is to show the connections. So we've teamed up different stories. Sometimes they're both in the same geographically in about the same area, but sometimes they're not. And so the aim of that was just to show that someone in India could be doing the same thing as someone in Alaska. Like they are on the same mission, which you might not get that if you just watch the films individually. And then we're also dipping our toe. It's funny because like I feel like everything we say is like a river metaphor or a river pun, like dipping our toe, wading through the trickle. But we are starting to also tell stories of iconic rivers. And so we have a series right now that we're taking one river from source to sea. And instead of telling a 12-minute story, we're going to tell a 3-part, 20-minute series on it. So we, again, instead of just a one-off, we can show the impact. We can show the village at the source of this river has a completely different experience and connection to the river than where it goes out to sea. If you think about it, like just for instance, California, say for instance, the source of, which is the river there, might be the Sacramento River. It's up in the mountain. It's beautiful. It's pristine. By the time it gets down to the sea, it's it's in like San Francisco. It's like it's completely polluted, and I could be messing that up, so don't quote me on that. But if you think about it, the source and the sea are completely different. So we're starting to tell our stories in a different way, so that you can really see the connections between all the people that live around a certain water source, and then also the way it impacts them, which is it's so incredibly different. And I don't think we would be able to see that connection even if we did two different films. You might not watch them back to back, but at least with a series, we're able to show the connectivity of these things.
Can't wait for that one to come
out. And we have Pattern coming up, which will have started as well. And people will have been able to see that once we started, but you'll be able to stream all of our films. That one's the tongue tie. On Pattern, our first 6 are on there, correct? But we'll have more getting added to it.
Yep, first 6 are on there.
Water Bear. What other places are you guys currently working on for streaming? Places to catch our films beyond just YouTube? Shameless plug to go watch our films on YouTube or our website.
Absolutely. 100%. We are in talks with a few different places. I will not jinx it, but we definitely have another 6 coming up on Pattern that will be rolling out starting, what is it, Julia? February 15th?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Coming up in February. And then Water Bear, hopefully we will get a few more on as well. Water Bears are great. They have been, Pattern has been phenomenal. They've been wonderful. But Water Bear is also just like, if you love environmental docs, Water Bear is your one-stop shop for it. It's a great site as well.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for it. As we get ready to wrap up this session, is there anything else you would like to share, whether it's with us or with listeners, people who are new to Rivers or Life, people who are longtime fans? Anything else you wanna share?
Well, Ariel, you said something that resonated. You said that like sometimes it just takes one small thing, like one action. And I think that's super important to remember, because sometimes when watching these films, I'm of two minds. Part of me is so excited and like I love seeing the stories of people that are doing things, and then part of me then shifts to like, I'm not doing enough. Like what am there is that, like, you feel good just by watching somebody do good, but then you have to do good yourself. And I hope when people watch these films they get inspired, but they also realize, like, if you do one actionable thing, it's doing something good. Like maybe it's just turning the water off when you brush your teeth, which is like something we all learned forever ago. People still do it. Don't take a new plastic bottle every day to your workout. I am a vegetarian and I drive an electric car, and I feel like, I try to do my part for the planet, but I still feel this guilt of like, I'm not doing enough. And so I think the point of these films is to highlight people doing great things. And if, you're in a position to donate to their cause, or if you have the luxury of money and you donate monetarily, great. If you have the luxury of time and you go out and do something to help your local community, great. But if you just take that in and do something small, it's still a big step in the right direction. Just like watching the film and having an impact on you and trying to do one little thing is enough, like one step at a time. Because I do feel, I feel like it can sometimes be overwhelming to understand how to help out and how to be a part of a solution, but it's just one little thing at a time. That's it.
I like that approach. That makes me feel a little bit better about all the little things we do.
I think it is true, though.
Yeah.
And like even us, we watch these huge, like these people doing these huge projects, and I think we all feel it a little bit, like you just said, as you're in the production process, and we get it too, like, oh, I should be doing more. Like, how do I do this big, huge task? Instead of just remembering, like, hey, we're people too. Like, we all have these responsibilities.
It is, and it does not go unnoticed by me that like sometimes change is not as easy as it seems. Like I use laundry pods that are an eco-friendly laundry company. Not even pods. I use refillable detergent that comes in metal bottles. It's a lot more expensive than a plastic jug at the grocery store. And so, sometimes like you vote with your dollar, but not everybody has that luxury either. And so you don't have to like make an entire shift of your entire existence, but just being aware and doing one tiny little thing. Even just throwing away your garbage, like you see litter on the street, like put your garbage in the bin, recycle it. Most most cities now have recycling programs. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can just be one little tiny thing.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, talking about cities and municipality, I mean, the systems that are in place around you are so important, but even just advocacy. Voting is huge, but so is advocacy work. So talking with your local elected officials, and I want to bring it back to one of our earlier films, Keepers of the North. I think that may have been super early on with Rivers Are Life, but we got word that a state senator in Alaska saw that film and it helped him to push for stronger environmental regulations in the state. And of course, it's like, how do we, we don't have record of it, but it got back to us. And those are the kind of things that with filmmaking and storytelling, you never know who's going to see it. You never know the impact it's going to have. And that's why storytelling can be so powerful. So even if it's just like sharing a story you feel connected with and why you feel connected to it with your network, I feel like that ties into all of our work too.
Totally. I agree. And as you said that, I was just thinking, like, also be a squeaky wheel. Your voice is free. If you see something and you can help be a change, do it. I was just thinking, there was an organization that a business that I was affiliated with, or I frequented, and they used styrofoam. And I had talked to like the manager. This was like 5 years ago. And I was like, what's the impetus behind styrofoam? He's like, it's cheap. It's cheap. And it took 5 years, but me kind of being this squeaky wheel and getting more people on board, that business shifted to using, getting water filling stations and using refillable cups, because, over the course of 5 years, they saw that the landscape changed and pricing structure changed, and it was just a little more expensive to do what was better for the world. And so you can also just be a squeaky wheel, even at your local coffee shop, wherever. I went to a coffee shop the other day and they didn't have coffee stirrers. They had sticks of pasta, which I thought was super cute.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cute, and I don't know what it was in Missoula, Montana, which is known for its, it's a very environmental town, but I thought that was super cute. Like, one little change can make a big difference. And now a little plastic stirrer isn't out in the world.
I'd love to hear, that brings up a good point too. We've talked about all these little ways. I'd love to hear from listeners, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, a review on the whatever podcast app you're listening on, Instagram. What are they can be the tiniest things ever. What are the things that you're doing intentionally to make this change? We all have our own thing. We all have our own things that we've seen. And they're endless. So I'd love to hear what other people have seen, what they're doing, what they're squeaking about. I would find that super interesting.
Yeah, and I think even going off of yours, just sharing and being an advocate as well, like sharing our podcast, watching our films, sharing our films that make a difference to you, and just making sure to share those stories. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for being on the podcast. We can't wait to continue to see what studio pushes out to us and the stories you guys find, because before we do sometimes, so.
Oh, we know everything. Yeah, just kidding, we don't.
It seems like
well,
but thank you.
No, thank you. This was so lovely. It was so nice, and I appreciate it. I just appreciate taking the time, and I could talk about this all day. So thanks for highlighting the work that we are doing at Rivers Are Life, and shining a spotlight on the studio films we're doing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you.